HOA. Karen called as cops on me, said I was trespassing on my own ranch. But what she didn't know, my hidden cameras caught her dumping toxic waste into my lake, and I exposed her to the entire country. The HOA president called the cops on me for camping at my own ranch lake. I've owned this property for 10 years. Now suddenly, I'm a trespasser? This power-hungry suburban queen shows up with police at midnight, demanding I leave my land immediately. But while she's accusing me of crimes, guess who's really been sneaking onto my property in the dark? Guess who's been using my private lake like their personal playground? What I discovered about her little midnight visits would destroy everything she built. This battle for my land? It's about to get insane. The night had started off perfect. Just me and the memories, dancing in the firelight. I'd set up my old camping chair right by the water's edge. Same spot where Emily and I used to sit for hours, watching the sunset paint the lake gold. The cooler beside me? Nothing fancy, just a six-pack, a beer, and some sandwiches I'd thrown together during my shift at the warehouse. This was my Friday night ritual, my way of keeping her close, even 5 years after losing her warm hand in mine. The fire popped and hissed, sending sparks flying towards stars that seemed brighter than usual, like they were putting on a show just for me. And I swear I could almost hear Emily's laugh in the wind rustling through the cottonwoods. I could almost feel her head on my shoulder as we used to dream out loud. Build a dock, stock the lake with bass, host barbecues for the guys from work. Then, the sirens shattered everything. Red and blue lights bounced off the lake water like a twisted disco ball. 2 patrol cars pulled up to my campsite. Dust swirled in their headlights, and I recognized Deputy Brian Walsh stepping out of the lead vehicle. We'd been tight back in high school, used to skip class together just to go fishing, but that felt like a lifetime ago. Behind him came the real trouble, Patricia Ellison, president of the Crestview Heights HOA, marching toward me in designer heels that had no business touching ranch land. Her chin was up like she owned the whole county, not just the fancy neighborhood next door. "That's him, officer," she announced, pointing at me like I was some kind of criminal mastermind, instead of a tired 50-year-old warehouse manager trying to enjoy his own property. "This man is trespassing on HOA land, disturbing our residents with his illegal camping." Brian looked uncomfortable, scratching his head the way he always did when stuck between a rock and a hard place. "Dan, I'm sorry about this," he said, "but we got a complaint. Mrs. Ellison here says this lake belongs to Crestview Heights." His eyes kept darting between me and Patty, like he was trying to figure out which way to jump. I stood up slowly, my fists clenched without me even realizing, as I felt my blood start to boil. "This lake's our home, Dan." Emily's words echoed in my mind. The promise I made, to protect what we built together. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the folded land ownership papers I always kept with me, worn from years of carrying them like a talisman. "Brian, you know me better than this," I said. "I've owned this ranch for 10 years, bought it with every penny my parents left me and everything Emily and I saved up. These papers prove every square inch of this land, including the lake, belongs to me." Patty snatched the papers before Brian could even take a look. Her manicured nails caught the firelight as she made a dramatic show of inspecting them. "These could be as fake as his claim," she scoffed, tossing them back at me like trash. "Everyone knows this lake has always been part of our community's watershed rights." Brian shifted uncomfortably, rocking on his heels. "Look, Dan, I need to sort this out properly. Mrs. Ellison's been talking about some HOA initiatives. Could really help with department funding, career advancement opportunities for local law enforcement." He couldn't even meet my eyes when he said it. "But for tonight," I was saying, "I'm going to have to ask you to pack up and head home, just to keep the peace while we figure this out." My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. I was being run off my own land by a power-hungry suburban queen who probably couldn't tell a catfish from a trout. "My papers don't lie, Patty. Even if you do," I snapped, throwing my gear together in sharp, angry movements. She smiled that fake smile, the kind that probably worked on soccer moms and retired executives back in her little HOA kingdom. "This land's not yours, buddy," she said, her voice thick with condescension. "And soon, everyone will know it." The words hit me like a blow. My mind flashed to my parents' faces. The day they handed me the check for this place, their life's dream, coming true through me. I looked at her, really looked at her, and all I saw was greed. Dressed in a pantsuit, I threw my gear in the truck bed, each item landing with a bang that echoed across the lake. Brian walked me to my vehicle. His hand on my shoulder, was it sympathy? Or was he just making sure I actually left? "Dan, we'll get this sorted out, I promise. Just give me some time to look into it." But his words felt hollow, especially with Patty standing there, that smug grin plastered across her face. She was already tasting victory. As I drove away, her image burned in my rearview mirror like a bad omen, standing by my lake, like she already owned it. "Patty thinks she's queen," I muttered, gripping the steering wheel tight. "But my papers say, game over." That's when my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Unknown number, and the message made my blood run cold. "Leave the lake, or you'll lose more than land." I pulled over on that dark ranch road, just staring at the message. My heart was pounding. This wasn't just some petty land dispute anymore. Someone was threatening me, and I had a sick feeling. Patty's ambitions went deeper than anyone in Crestview Heights realized. I needed answers, and I knew exactly who might have them. Evelyn Harper. She'd lived in these parts long before Crestview Heights was even a gleam in some developer's eye. If anyone knew the true history of this land, it was her. I dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring. "Dan Carver," she said, like she'd been expecting me. "I was wondering when you'd call." Her voice carried that knowing tone, like she had a crystal ball hidden somewhere behind her tea cabinet. "Let me guess," she continued. "Patty Ellison's been sniffing around your lake?" I told her about the police visit, about the shared marking I'd found on the old town hall map. Evelyn let out a dry laugh. "Oh, honey," she said, "I've seen HOA signs pop up on folks' land before. Patty's not the first to try and steal what doesn't belong to her. Come by tomorrow morning. Bring those papers. There's something you need to know about our dear HOA president." Her words gave me hope, but it didn't last long. My laptop dinged with a new email. Sender, Patricia Ellison. The message? Wrapped in legal jargon, but the threat was loud and clear. "Cease and desist from accessing HOA property or face immediate legal action." According to her very creative interpretation of the property lines, the lake had always belonged to Crestview Heights, and now my illegal occupation was damaging community resources. I laughed out loud, a short, harsh sound in my quiet kitchen. But that laugh died quick when I saw the attachments. Photos of me at the lake from multiple angles, dated and time-stamped, over the past several months. Someone had been watching me, documenting every visit I made to my own land, like I was a criminal. The next morning, the knock on my door came early. Too early. Aggressive, demanding. I checked the peephole. Todd Brennan, one of Patty's lapdogs from the HOA board. Cheap suit, nervous grin, the kind of guy who'd sell his own grandmother for a 2% commission, which made sense since he worked at the used car lot in town. "Mr. Carver," he started before I'd even fully opened the door, "I'm here with a generous offer from the HOA. Sign over the lake rights, and we'll make this all go away. No legal battles, no public embarrassment. Mrs. Ellison's even prepared to offer a small compensation for your cooperation." I glanced at the papers in his sweaty hands. They were shaking slightly, and he kept looking back at his car, like he was ready to bolt. "And if I don't sign?" I asked. His smile turned mean. The salesman mask slipped, just long enough to show the rat underneath. "Then you'll lose everything," he said. "The lake, the ranch, maybe even that warehouse job of yours. Mrs. Ellison has connections you can't even imagine." I'd dealt with bullies before. Todd Brennan, he was amateur hour. I stepped closer. "Go ahead, Todd. My papers don't just talk. They win." He backed up a little. His grin faltered. "You're making a big mistake, Carver," he said, almost spitting the words. "This is your last chance to walk away with something." But he was already retreating toward his car. I didn't say a word, just stared him down. He peeled out of my driveway in a cloud of dust. I didn't wait. I grabbed my folder and headed straight to Evelyn's place. Her living room was a museum of local history. Photos, documents, faded newspaper clippings. She handed me tea in a delicate china cup, then pulled out a folder that looked like it had been waiting for this moment. "Remember the Garrison family?" she asked. "They used to own that big spread near the creek." I nodded, vaguely remembered they'd moved away about 5 years ago. "Well," she said, "they didn't exactly choose to leave. HOA started claiming water rights, then mineral rights, then somehow their whole property line got adjusted in the county records. By the time they figured it out, they were already buried in legal fees." She pulled out a faded court filing, showed the HOA had actually lost a similar case years before Patty's time. "But here's the juicy part," Evelyn said, lowering her voice. "I did some digging on our dear Patricia Ellison." She held up another document, and suddenly everything clicked. Todd's nervousness, Brian's sudden interest in career advancement, the whole scheme. Patty wasn't just some HOA president on a power trip. She'd done this before. "Todd practically shook when I confronted him later that day," I said. I'd run into him outside the grocery store. He looked like a trapped animal, eyes darting around like Patty might appear from thin air. "You don't know what she's capable of," he whispered. He actually whispered, like Patty could hear him from across town. "Just sign the papers, man," he said. "It's not worth what she'll do to you." But his fear, it didn't scare me. It just made me angry, made me focused. I drove home clutching the photo Evelyn had given me. It was Patty, by a lake that looked eerily like mine, holding a canister with a hazard symbol on it. Emily's words echoed in my mind. "This lake's our home, Dan." I set that photo on the table beside our wedding picture, and I made a promise. I would protect what we built. Then, a loud thud shook my whole house, rattled the windows. My coffee mug slid across the table. I rushed outside. My fence gate, hanging off its hinges. Fresh tire tracks led straight toward the lake, and in the fading light, I saw something floating in the water. Something that hadn't been there this morning. An oily sheen, spreading across the surface, like a toxic rainbow. The war for my land had just escalated, and the question burning in my mind, had Patty already started poisoning my lake to force me out? The Crestview Heights clubhouse looked like a fortress of suburban pretense. Marble columns, manicured landscaping that probably cost more than my truck. I walked through those double doors knowing full well I was stepping into enemy territory. But Evelyn insisted. I had to hear what Patty was planning with my own ears. Inside, the main hall was packed. The smell of expensive perfume mixed with the aroma of gourmet coffee from the bar they'd set up in the corner. I took a seat near the back, tried to blend in, work boots, flannel shirt, definitely not Crestview standard attire, not among the golf polos and yoga pants. At the podium stood Patty, like a general addressing her troops, her voice, sweet, concerned, fake. "Friends, we're facing a crisis," she began, clasping her hands like she was praying for their souls. "A crisis that threatens the very foundation of our community. The lake we've all enjoyed, that our children play near, that adds such beauty to our homes. It's under attack by someone who cares nothing for safety or property values." The crowd murmured. Heads turned. People started looking around, looking for the villain in her story, and I bit my tongue just to keep from standing up right then and there. She pulled up a presentation, aerial photos of my ranch. My lake, circled in red, like a target. "This individual has been contaminating our watershed with illegal camping, threatening the delicate ecosystem we've worked so hard to protect." The lies came so smooth, they almost sounded believable. I watched the crowd, watched concern twist into anger. Then, like clockwork, a man in the front row stood up, pointed straight at me. "That's him," he said. "That's the troublemaker ruining our community." Suddenly, I was the center of attention. Dozens of eyes stared right at me. But then, a woman by the window leaned to her neighbor, whispered just loud enough for me to hear. I saw HOA folks sneaking by that lake last week. At night, what were they doing there if it's not their property? I stood slowly, reached into my coat, and pulled out the documents Evelyn had given me. My hand steady, my voice clear. Since I'm being accused, I said, maybe you'd all like to see some actual facts, rather than Mrs. Ellison's storytelling. I held up the court filing, made sure they all saw the official seal. This shows the HOA lost a similar land grab 15 years ago. Seems like some habits die hard. Patty's face turned several shades of red. Then she blinked, snapped into performance mode. Tears welled in her eyes. She placed a hand on her chest. We're just trying to save our community, she said. This man wants to destroy everything we've built. Her voice cracked like she'd just read the final act of a tragedy. I nearly laughed, but some people bought it. They crowded around her, handed her tissues, whispered sympathy. You're all being played, I said, louder now. Check the town hall records yourselves, See who actually owns what. The room exploded, voices raised, neighbors shouting over each other. Patty slammed her fist on the podium, tried calling for order, but the seed of doubt had been planted. I walked through the crowd, dropped my folder right where I knew Patty would see it. Her eyes locked onto it. Her face paled. Photos, maps, court stamps. You want to play games? I whispered. Fine, but I play to win. Evelyn caught my eye across the room, gave me a wink. Patty was a performer, but this time I was stealing the show. The best moment? When someone asked, loudly, why HOA folks were spotted by the lake after midnight. The room went dead quiet. Patty's fake smile wavered, cracked for just a second. I slipped out during the confusion, but not before making sure she heard me tell Evelyn, I'm installing security cameras. Got them on sale, though, might not catch everything. That part? That was bait. Back at the ranch, I spent the whole day setting them up. The ones I showed were decoys, old cameras from a pawn shop. The real ones? Hidden in birdhouses. Fence posts, infrared, night vision, streamed straight to my laptop. As I worked, I kept thinking of Emily. You always liked your spy movies, she'd have said, laughing. That thought made me smile. Even now, night fell like a curtain. I brewed coffee, sat at my laptop, and waited. If Patty was going to make a move, it would be tonight. The rally had shaken her. People like her didn't handle that well. Sure enough, just after midnight, movement. A figure, cloaked in black, emerged from the tree line, headed straight for the lake. They were carrying something, heavy, struggling with it. As they turned, the moonlight caught a glint of metal, an HOA badge. They reached the water's edge, uncapped a large canister, began pouring a dark liquid into my lake. It spread across the surface like oil, thicker than the water itself. I could almost smell the chemicals through the screen. I hit record, saved the footage to multiple drives. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from fury. They weren't just trying to steal my land. They were poisoning it, trying to make it worthless, trying to break me. But they made one mistake. They thought I wouldn't fight back. The figure disappeared into the woods. No clue they'd just given me exactly what I needed. Proof that night I didn't sleep. I watched that footage on repeat, anger and resolve coursing through me. Tomorrow, I'd take it to Brian, force him to choose, his old friend or his shiny new career. The footage on my laptop made my blood boil every time I watched it. But I forced myself to review it again and again. Every detail cataloged, every face, every barrel, every act of destruction. My hidden cameras caught it all. Todd Brennan and 3 other HOA goons. Trudging through my property at 2 a.m., they hammered no trespassing signs around my lake like they owned the place. The best part? Todd's face when he slipped in the mud, cursing loud enough to wake the dead while his buddies laughed. But the laughter didn't last long, because Patty herself stepped into the frame, dressed in all black, like some twisted suburban ninja. She was directing them, pointing, shouting, ordering them to pour barrel after barrel of toxic sludge into my water. The lake turned green under the moonlight. Sickly, unnatural, the kind of green that kills everything it touches. Fish, frogs, birds, dead. I backed up the footage to 5 different drives. Paranoid? Maybe, but I wasn't taking chances. Emily's photo sat beside me as I typed up a full report for Brian. Timestamps, screenshots, witness summaries. I was building a case that would burn Patty's empire to the ground. I found Brian the next morning at the sheriff's station. He looked like hell, buried in paperwork, eyes heavy. "We need to talk," I said. I slid a USB drive across his desk. "This time, listen with your brain, not your wallet." He hesitated, then plugged it in, and watched. He watched everything. Patty ordering the poisoning of my lake like she'd done it 100 times before. He rubbed his face. "Jesus, Dan," he whispered. "I knew she was pushy about that career stuff. But this?" He leaned back in his chair. "I'm an idiot. She played me like a fiddle, promised me connections, told me I'd be sheriff within 2 years if I helped with the community relations." The confession hung in the air, heavy with guilt, with betrayal. But Brian wasn't a bad cop, just compromised, until now. "I'll open an investigation immediately," he said. "This is destruction of property, illegal dumping, environmental crimes." Patty just bought herself a world of hurt. I nodded, but I wasn't done. Playing the long game required more than proof. It required patience and a bit of theater. I wrote what looked like a surrender letter. Every word designed to feed Patty's ego, to bait the trap. "Mrs. Ellison," I wrote, "you win. The legal fees, the threats, the damage to my property. I can't fight anymore. I'll sign whatever you want. Just please, stop destroying the only thing I have left of my wife." I even forged a shaky signature. Made it look like defeat, like exhaustion. Evelyn delivered the letter, playing the part of the sympathetic neighbor, and within hours, Patty was crowing. Her victory party was set for the weekend. Everyone in Crestview Heights was invited. Neighbors patted her on the back, praising her for saving the community. They didn't see her snap at Todd when he spilled wine on her rug, didn't see her hands tremble when she thought no one was looking. That night, I sat by the lake, tossed stones into the poisoned water. Each ripple reminded me of Emily's laugh. "This lake's our home," I whispered, "and I'm about to take it back." The letter said surrender, but every word was a lie, a net, closing around Patty's neck. I walked my property line that night, checked every hidden camera. They were all rolling. The public believed I'd given up. But behind the scenes, I was building a case that would destroy her. Brian had already begun interviewing witnesses. Even some HOA board members were getting nervous. Patty's celebration flooded social media. Photos, toasts, designer dresses. Each post, another piece of evidence. Proof of her arrogance, her deception. And the comments, they started to shift. Some praised her. Others began asking questions. Why is she partying while that man loses his land? Didn't I see her at the lake after midnight? I saved every screenshot, built a timeline of her downfall. The irony? She was documenting her own destruction. I prepared for the final phase. But then, one more move. I was heading inside when I saw it. My ranch gate. The heavy iron one my father installed 20 years ago. It was hanging, twisted and broken. Fresh tire marks led right to it and pinned to the wreckage with a knife. A note in Patty's handwriting. "Give up or your lake's next." I stared at it and I laughed. I actually laughed. The lake was already poisoned. My gate was already gone. But now, I had written proof of harassment in her own hand. I photographed everything, sent it to Brian, texted, "She's escalating." His reply came fast. "Stay safe. We move tomorrow." I looked out at my broken gate, then at the dark lake beyond, and something shifted in me. She thought I'd break, but Patty had no idea what was coming. Tomorrow, the whole world would see what she really was. and I'd be there, wearing the same smile she wore at her victory party. The only question now was whether she'd go down quietly or drag others with her. Morning came with Emily's letter in my hands, the one she wrote before the cancer took her. She'd known I'd need her words when things got dark. I sat by the poisoned lake, ignoring the chemical stench, and read her shaky handwriting for the 100th time. This lake's our home, Dan. When I'm gone, it'll still be ours. You'll find me in every ripple, every sunset, every memory. Fight for it, my love. Don't let anyone take our home. The paper was soft from folding, stained with old tears and new ones, but her strength flowed through every word. I remembered our last picnic out here, how she insisted on coming, even though she could barely walk. Her smile lit up the whole world, watching the ducks paddle by. Promise me, she whispered, cold fingers in mine. Promise you will keep this place. And I had. I thought I was just comforting a dying woman, not realizing her words would become my battle cry. The video upload took 3 minutes. Felt like 3 hours. My finger hovered over the button. Then I clicked it. HOA president caught poisoning lake. Bland title. But the footage? It didn't need drama. By the time I finished my coffee, the views had already hit 1,000. My phone buzzed nonstop with notifications. The comment section blew up. Justice served. Evict the queen. She poisoned a lake? Throw her in jail. One meme had Patty's face photoshopped onto a Marvel villain. Another showed her sinking in green sludge like a cartoon. But the message that hit hardest came from a young resident of Crestview Heights. We're with you, Dan. She's bullied us for years. More followed. Stories of harassment, fines, property theft attempts. It painted a picture of systematic corruption. By noon, the local news picked it up. By evening, Patty's reputation was in flames. Her desperate pleas for sympathy drowned in laughing emojis and court date predictions. Evelyn outdid herself, showed up at my door with Maria Gonzalez, a former neighbor of Patty's. I've been waiting for someone to stand up to that witch, Maria said, fire in her eyes. She had her goons tear out my grandmother's rose bushes. Said they violated community standards. Those roses were carried from Mexico as seeds by my abuela. They were irreplaceable. Maria signed the witness statement with a trembling hand. Evelyn backed her up with decades of records, photos of HOA board members trespassing. Always at night, always followed by damage. Then generous offers to buy out the problem. She's been playing this game for years, Evelyn said, sorting through documents. But she finally picked the wrong man. 3 days later, we walked up the courthouse steps, my lawyer carrying boxes of evidence. Protesters outside waving signs. Save our lakes. Stop HOA corruption. Dan's land, Dan's rules. Inside, Patty sat with her high-powered legal team. Designer suit, tight smile, hands trembling. When we showed the videos, the judge's face twisted. From disbelief to disgust to cold, focused anger. This is clear documentation of criminal activity, the judge said. I'm ordering an immediate review of all property records involving the Crestview Heights HOA. Then came the moment Patty ruined what little chance she had. During recess, she approached Maria and tried to whisper something. Didn't realize the bailiff was watching. Witness tampering. So blatant, even her own attorney looked embarrassed. The final ruling came swift. The lake, confirmed as mine, and protected under a nature preserve status, meaning the HOA couldn't touch it again. Patty's shriek echoed through the courtroom like a banshee. Brian handed me an envelope afterward. I thought you might want to see this. Inside, a newspaper clipping from Nevada, 7 years old. Headline, Real Estate Manager Loses Massive Lawsuit in Land Fraud Scheme. The photo, Patty, younger, but unmistakable. That same predatory smile. The article described how she tried stealing waterfront property from elderly residents, using forged documents and threats. One quote burned into my brain. Patty laughed when she took my land and cried when she had to pay for it. The settlement had destroyed her real estate career, forced her and her husband to relocate. She thought she could run the same playbook here, Brian said. Didn't count on you fighting back. I folded the article carefully. One more weapon for whatever came next. That evening I got the call, the one that made all of it worth it. The EPA was launching a federal investigation into the lake poisoning. Patty was facing federal charges. The news ran with it immediately. HOA president's toxic leadership exposed. Footage showed hazmat crews draining the lake. I watched from the shore, arms crossed, Emily's words echoing in my head. This lake's our home. And then, just as I turned to leave, my truck alarm blared. There was a note, tucked under the windshield, written in a rush, smelled like gasoline. Drop the lawsuit or your ranch burns. Signed in P. My eyes scanned the trees, the shadows, the silence. She'd poisoned my lake, destroyed my gate, and now she was threatening arson. But something told me by my mind, this wasn't just Patty anymore. She had help. Someone was still feeding her information, still slipping through my defenses. The Nevada victim's quote came back. Patty laughed when she took my land, cried when she had to pay. Well, this time she wasn't getting away with a slap on the wrist. The deeper I dug into Patty's past, the uglier it got. Court documents, license suspensions, financial trails. Everything pointed to one truth. She wasn't just greedy, she was dangerous. Her real estate license? Revoked. Her husband? Richard? Almost disbarred. They didn't just flee Nevada, they fled disgrace. But some predators don't change. They just find new hunting grounds. In Texas, she reinvented herself as an HOA queen. Only this time, she didn't get her hands dirty. She used proxies, people like Todd, people she could throw under the bus if things went south. My kitchen table was covered in files, photos, maps, a paper trail of Patty's entire operation. Then, Todd showed up at my porch, middle of the night, sweating, pale, terrified. She's lost it, Dan, he whispered. After the court ruling, she's been screaming at everyone, throwing things. She hired some hotshot lawyer from Dallas. She's gonna bury you in legal fees. I noticed bruises on his wrist. He lit a cigarette with trembling hands. She's planning something worse than the lake. I heard her talking about permanent solutions. He paused, then looked me dead in the eye. If this goes south, she's gonna blame me. Say I did everything, that I poisoned the lake without authorization. I'll testify, I'll tell everything. Just protect me from her. I didn't trust Todd as far as I could throw him, but I saw the fear in his eyes, and fear doesn't lie. I agreed. If he wanted to flip, I'd use him and I'd bury her. I made sure word got out that I was at the land office, made it loud enough for HOA ears. Looking to expand your ranch? The clerk asked. Something like that, I replied. Just loud enough. Amazing what's for sale if you know where to look. The seed was planted. By that afternoon, Patty was in full meltdown mode. She called an emergency community meeting, tears streaming down her face. Dan Carver is trying to destroy our community, she sobbed. He's fabricating evidence, bribing witnesses, turning you all against me when all I've ever done is protect you. Some bought it, handed her tissues, murmured support, but others, they looked skeptical. Then someone asked about the poisoning video. Patty claimed it was doctored, said I'd used AI to frame her. Deep fakes, edited footage. Desperation poured from every word, and the cracks were showing. Later that day, I watched from across the street as Brian confronted her outside the sheriff's station. You used me, he said, his voice loud enough to carry across the parking lot. Fed me promises about promotions, about state contacts, while you were committing crimes behind my back. I'm done, she tried to cry again. Reached for his arm, but Brian stepped away. Save it for someone who hasn't seen the footage. You're going down, Patty, and you're not dragging this department with you. Her face twisted. The mask fell completely. You pathetic small-town nobody, she hissed. I offered you a future, and you're throwing it away for some warehouse worker? You'll regret this. Brian just shook his head and walked away. Later, he told me she had promised everything, political backing, sheriff endorsements, all lies. Then came federal court. Patty's Dallas lawyer came swinging. He painted me as a bitter loner, said I was out for revenge, claimed I edited the videos, coerced witnesses, and for a moment, watching the jury's faces, I worried. Then I played my ace, the Nevada case files, the testimonies from her past victims, a pattern of behavior spanning years and states. When Patty took the stand, she cracked. "Those people were lying," she shouted. "That was different. That doesn't mean I did anything here." She spiraled, shouting about conspiracies, about being the real victim. Then the final blow came. Todd, he took the stand and exposed everything, the threats, the dumping, the cover-ups. Patty lunged at him, screaming, "Traitor!" before court officers restrained her. The courtroom gasped. The judge's ruling was swift and thunderous. The Crestview Heights HOA is fined $100,000 for environmental damage and criminal conspiracy. Patricia Ellison is removed from office, effective immediately. She is barred from holding any HOA authority in the state. The gavel came down like a guillotine. Her empire destroyed. Her husband facing his own charges: fraud, money laundering, illegal fund transfers. As reporters flooded the hallway, Brian gave me one last nod. Not the friendship we once had, but a nod of respect. The local headline? The HOA's biggest flop. And the photo? Patty being escorted out in cuffs, swinging her designer purse at the judge. Then came my move, the twist I'd been saving. A crowd gathered on the courthouse steps. Crestview Heights residents, ex-HOA members. I held up a deed. "Last month I purchased 40 acres of Crestview Heights property," I said. "That includes your community center, your pool, and your precious golf course." The silence was deafening. People gasped. Under HOA bylaws, the largest landowner has majority control, the same trick Patty had used for years. "As of today," I declared, "I'm dissolving the current HOA board. We'll hold new elections, free of intimidation, free of corruption." Patty, still being held, stumbled when she heard. "How?" she cried. "How could you afford that?" I smiled. "Emily made me save the accident settlement. She said we'd use it for something important." Well, this felt important. As they hauled Patty off, I added, "My papers don't just win, they laugh." That quote, it went viral. A meme, a slogan. But I didn't care. I had one place to be, the lake. Clean, clear, safe. We held a celebration. The whole community showed up. Even residents from Crestview Heights. Evelyn made barbecue. Someone brought a cake, decorated with a fondant, Patty falling off a fondant throne. Kids reenacted her courtroom stumble with dramatic sound effects. And me? I stood by the lake, raised a toast to Emily. "This lake's our home, Emily," I whispered, "and it always will be." As the sun set, a woman approached, early 30s, tired eyes. "Mr. Carver, I'm from Riverside Township. 2 hours south, our HOA makes Patty look like an amateur. They've seized 3 homes using forged documents. The sheriff's in their pocket." She handed me a folder. Thick. "Will you help us?" I looked down. Same patterns, same corruption, same fear. Part of me wanted to say no, to enjoy my victory. But then I thought of Emily, of what she said about using our blessings to help others. I nodded. "Let me look into it," was what I said. And that night, as the stars reflected off the water like diamonds, I found one last surprise. A scorched photo, tucked under my windshield wiper. The lake, my lake, burned into the image, and a note on the back. "This isn't over. R.P." I stared at it, felt the anger, but not so long. Calm. Let her come. I'd beaten her once, and I'd do it again. Because this lake, this land, is our home. And no one, not Patty, not her past, not her thugs, was ever going to take it from me. Hit that like button if you've ever had to deal with a Karen. Drop a comment with your HOA horror story, and subscribe for more real stories that prove sometimes justice shows up with a badge.